Hi everyone and welcome to my Season 23 leveling guide. So there's nothing really new here for veteran players, it's just more of a refresher, and I think a lot of people might also have to take another look because last season we had the shadow clones that a lot of people used and they were carrying you pretty hard. So this is not possible anymore, so you have to level yourself, and I want to show you how it's done most efficiently. First of all, let's start with creating the character. When the season starts on Friday, you want to create a character or you want to rebirth another character. It's no difference at all. It just gives you the playtime of your old character and the name, so you don't have to delete it, and that's it. After the season has launched and you see the pop-up in the screen and also in the chat, you should do the challenge rift first. You can theoretically start it, let's say 2 minutes before the season start, and then not kill the boss until the pop-up. That works if you want to squeeze out a bit of extra time, but usually just be on a safe side. Take the challenge rift after you have seen the notification. This challenge rift cache gives you a lot of items to get started with your character. You can get some blood shards for gambling, you get some bounty materials and some death breath, so you can upgrade all your artisans and you can cube an item at level 1. So I don't want to make this video too long now by explaining all the different classes and what they gamble and cube. So here's just a little overview, and I'm gonna have another video going into the details of this as well. Generally, whatever you get will help you out at level 70 as well, because some classes have quite a weak start. For example, the wizard with Tarasha set doesn't really do much, but you can use those multipliers that you got here, like the Winter Flurry and maybe whatever you also found or crafted, to just complete the GR20, get your full set, and then transition from the starter set to whatever you want to play, which for example here would be most likely the Firebirds, and you do the same thing with the other classes as well. So now when you load into the game with your character at level 1, the first thing you do is you go to your follower and take his weapon, because they are better than yours at the start. And like this, you already have a nice DPS boost. Then you go check for some vendors quickly, not really too much, but you can usually get like a small upgrade here and there. You know, just buy some of the stuff that gives you life regen, and don't worry too much. Usually just buy what you get, be fast about this, you don't want to waste your time in town. Now, a good way to get a few levels at the start is to go for a kill bounty for a boss. So if you have one, especially Magda and Salt and Cool in Act 2, you can just go for those and kill the boss if you get the bounty. In groups, typically this is what we do because almost guaranteed one of the guys is gonna have it, but in solo you could theoretically also regame, because it gives you up to level 4 already just from the kill. It's quite easy, and you get some yellow items that will help you get started as well. Other than this, you need to get the Kanai's cube unlocked so you can actually craft your stuff. So you need to go to the Ruins of Zacheron, go to the end of the floor 2, and there is going to be the Kanai's cube that will be unlocked for the rest of the season when you reach it. When you do this, you're going to struggle with some classes if you go too high in difficulties. So most of the time it's better to just go for normal or for hard. Just make sure that you can keep your Massacre bonuses and don't really struggle your way all the way there, because you get some pretty big power boosts most likely after you started crafting and gambling your items. So as an example for kill speed, this here is already a bit slow, and this is on master difficulty as a solo Demon Hunter, which is kind of expected. Demon Hunter is not really great, so you might want to lower this to maybe something like expert or hard if it's becoming more and more slow. On your way there, you want to keep your Massacre bonuses, and you want to reach like 100, 200 or more kills, because the higher you go, the bigger of a multiplier you get for your experience. And it's just giving you a huge bonus. You can reach the Kanai's cube with over level 10, even level 12 or something like this, if you go for master difficulty, for example, and keep your Massacre all the way. Always prioritize keeping the Massacre over killing off this one little guy in the corner and then risking to lose it. Typically make sure that you carry them with you through the level, and if there are some straddlers that don't die, it's not too bad. Getting the Massacre rolling is by far the most important. Be careful about getting stuck here. There's a lot of monsters, there's a tight area, and this also applies for whenever you go for Massacre bonuses later on in the leveling process as well. Always be careful, always have a range skill from your class that you can use to keep the Massacre rolling, or have some dot effect, or have some pets that can proc it. So there are some options depending on the class, but this is usually how you do it. Now once you have reached a Kanai's cube, you go to the Blacksmith, you upgrade them. You can also do this with the other Artisans, and then you craft whatever you want to upgrade. This is usually exactly one weapon that is supposed to give you a big multiplier. For Demon Hunters, that is a dagger. We have a guaranteed outcome of either Karlei's Point or Lord Greenstone. Then you extract the power and put it in the cube, and you can use it for the leveling process. Then you also want to make sure you gamble your items at the start. So in this case, as a Demon Hunter, you will go for some braces, and you'll try to get the Wraps of Clarity, and I actually got them here with only 250 shards. And this is another boost that will help you out. Especially on some classes, you get some really big multipliers, like the Necromancer with the Gloves of Essence. From this point onward, you have to choose your leveling strategy. There are a few different options. One is to run just plain Nephalem Rifts. This is usually the worst strategy you can do, but typically something that doesn't really require a lot of thought, and you can just go in and grind your way up, but you won't really be faster than 2 hours or so with this, which is not really a great time compared to the other options. The two best strategies you can do are either Massacre leveling or Cursed Chest leveling. So here's a list of Cursed Chest events that you want to go for. This is something especially in groups that's quite helpful, because you can just regame with multiple people and you can find these chests really quickly. So if you're leveling in solo, typically you just go for Massacre and you ignore those chests, or maybe you find a game sometimes when you regame and you can take a look, but you shouldn't go exclusively for those. The way this works is you always check your map when you enter the game, and you look for those Cursed Chest events in Act 2 and Act 1 and Act 3 especially. And if you find one, you just teleport there, run to the bounty, clear the chest, try to get the Massacre bonus already going until you're there, and then you can get something like 150, 200, 300 kills, depending on the chest a little bit, if you do that well and don't lose a streak. And that will give you a massive bonus, and you go new game. For solo leveling mostly, you will probably go with Temple of the Firstborn. This is a very great dense zone that has a lot of these little bugs to give you easy Massacre bonuses. It has a few dangerous monsters, so you gotta be aware of those when you go on higher difficulties like Torment 2 and above. You might be quite squishy. You have these guys exploding on you, you have some other guys throwing stuff at you, but typically you get these little bugs here and they don't really do anything. And if you have some bit of slow, you can just group them up and you eat them down over time, and you get 300, 400 Massacre bonuses. And very often you'll also find a Cursed Chest in this zone. So as long as you keep up the Massacre bonuses, this is one of the best zones to level, and just keep running this over and over, reset the zone when you have cleared it, and then go new game. Another few decent zones to level in are also the Ruins of Zacharon or the Eternal Woods, where you can get really high Massacre bonuses. This is something that, for example, Witch Doctor could use, or if you can survive, also Fields of Misery has a lot of great density and a lot of monsters, and you can go a huge circle and get lots of kills there too. Finally, the last leveling strategy is the Horse of Agony Blades. This is only a softcore strategy because you have to do this on Torment 6 and you will die very often. There's almost no way to not die at all on this unless you're an absolute god gamer. So if you want to do that, you can get really fast levels by using the environmental effects in Horse of Agony level 1 with the blades that kill enemies for you. And you can get really quick levels like this, especially on the weaker classes. This is a very good strategy. So what you do is you run around and try to find those blades. They're always at the exit to level 2, and you just kite enemies into those blades and try to avoid getting hit yourself. If you have some slow abilities, this is really helpful. So for example, a Demon Hunter has caltrops, you kite them in there and you let them get killed automatically. There's also these zombie pits here that spawn extra guys, and you gotta be aware that these big zombies will also spawn their torso sometimes that will start crawling and hitting you sometimes, and they can one-shot you as well on Torment 6. So always be careful when you kill those, because they might just come out and destroy your Massacre streak or just kill you, and you only have a limited amount of revives. Typically, once you've figured out where it is, because you have already explored part of the map, you try to gather some enemies and drag them with you. You can get a bit of a Massacre bonus, and you can just get more enemies to kill here. And then once you have cleared everything nearby, you just go new game and go find them again. If you do this on Torment 6, you get a lot of XP, obviously, and there's also sometimes these elites here that will give you the big bonus as well. And you see that it works quite decently, and you barely get hit if you're a bit careful here. Sometimes you might get some nasty elites later on when they have more affixes, so they might have Jailer or Frozen or something that kills you instantly. So always try to prioritize killing those first, or worst case, just go new game. With this strategy, you can get to level 70 in around an hour if you do this perfectly, and it does require some practice. So if you want to go for this blade strategy, you need to try it out a few times to get a bit of a feel for it. Now, it doesn't matter which strategy you chose, you want to craft items and buy items at certain levels. So usually whenever you go back to town, you go check quickly for some upgrades, for something that can help you out here. Again, don't really waste your time here, just buy whatever you see and don't worry, because you're gonna replace it in a few levels either way. There are also certain vendors that can sell jewelry to you starting at level 6. They're called the Fence, they're in every act, and at level 6 and onwards they'll have rings for you, and level 10 and higher they will also have amulets for you. So what they're trying to get is rings that have damage range, so like 1 to 2 damage or 2 to 4 damage or something like that. Because at the very start this is an extremely strong stat, since your weapon is so weak that it will give you a massive bonus. Again, I wouldn't really try too hard to get those, but they will help you with like a 10%, 20% damage boost here and there, and can really make the leveling experience quite smooth. After your next run, you can just come back and check again anyway, and maybe you get something. And for like the first 10, 20, 30 levels or so, those blue amulets and rings from the vendors are really a great boon until you get some good drops. Other than that, you can also craft items for your leveling process. So you can always go to the Blacksmith and select highest usable, for example, and that will give you whatever is there. You just craft one piece of it and equip it if it's better, which is most likely going to happen. For example, in this case, you see the massive bonus I got. And you can do the same with armor, so you can just always craft 1 or 2 pieces, and it doesn't really cost very much to do that. Every few levels there's going to be a breakpoint, especially for weapons. This is a good idea to always check if you can get a new bow, for example, or a new hand crossbow, or whatever else you're using if you're a class, and like this you're always up to date. Also, you want to craft a level 70 weapon and try to roll reduced level requirement on it, because you can go all the way down to level 40 and you can get a huge bonus and essentially blast through turn 6 very easily once you have such a weapon, because it will multiply your damage tenfold. In the case of a Demon Hunter, you're gonna go for bows. Usually you will do this on a Witch Doctor, which is a little trick to not roll maximum discipline, but let's just go with this anyway. And you craft a few, maybe between 3 and 5, and try to look for an item that has a crowd control roll as a secondary, which this one has. You see this chance to fear on hit. Because if you go to the Mystic and you reroll the secondary, it will have a very small list of possible rolls. And there is the level requirement reduction. Reduced level requirement has a very low chance to roll, but since there's only a few options, it actually gives you a decent choice here. Because if you look at the chance to fear, it blocks a lot of the other rolls that you can get, and this is why you want to go for those weapons specifically. Then you try to roll this a few times and see if you can get the reduced level requirement. Ignore the monster XP, it won't really do much for you, and you really want to have that requirement. So here's a bit of an unlucky roll. This is level 14. So anything that is like around 10 or less is pretty much useless, because starting at level 61 you get these high DPS Reaper of Souls weapons anyway, so it doesn't matter much. So you want to try to get a bit more, something like minus 20 levels, minus 25 levels would be great, because then you can really use it for the leveling process. You gotta be aware here that you don't have infinite gold or infinite mats, so you gotta be very careful about how much you spend. You want to roll each of those weapons not really much more than maybe 5 times. So in this case you could maybe try to craft another 2 weapons or something and see what you get. So we're getting a bit unlucky, but this is how it goes sometimes, and it's not the end of the world if you don't get like some super massive level reduction. This will already help you for 5, 6, 7 levels or so. You can equip this at level 55, just crank up the difficulty and blast. And that's about it for this leveling guide. So to summarize, if you do this well and you have a bit of RNG in your favor, you can go down to around 1 hour for solo leveling, maybe 1.5 for a bit of the weaker classes if you're doing all of it well. Especially the Massacre Bonuses, Temple to Firstborn is very strong. In groups you can go even faster, so record times there are something like 45 minutes maybe with the Cursed Chest strategy. So this is also extremely good, and then you can just blast away at level 70 right away. At the start of the season, make your character do the challenge rift, grab your follower weapon, and then gamble and go for the cube. Then craft the item for the cube and use whatever you find as a multiplier to your advantage and try to level that. At level 6 and level 10, check the fence vendors for the jewelry, and also regularly check the vendors for some quick upgrades. Don't waste too much time on those. Maybe craft something on the blacksmith, like a new weapon every few levels as well. And also craft a level 70 reduced level requirement weapon that you can wear anywhere from level 40 to level 60 already. This concludes the guide, so if you want to check out the written version of this on Maxroll, you can also do so. It's all updated with all the steps that I just described, with the overview of what to go for with your class in terms of upgrading and gambling, and also all the different strategies explained, the list of the cursed chests if you want that, and everything is there. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and see you guys in Season 23.